All right, it is 5:52 in the morning, a.m. Good morning, my brothers, my mother, my Patreons. Let's get this show on the road. This is your premium piece of content for the month of June. We're going to be talking about money and I suppose my philosophies and the red pill lens that I want to drive. Still getting used to this car. All right, so I'm going to do this in the ride this morning because you guys seem to like the one I did on debt last month. Probably going to be driving into the sun in a moment because the sun is going to be in my face. I'm heading east. Money. Okay, let's talk about money, investments. Let me try to dispense every piece of wisdom that I can in the next 45 minutes for you. I have a simple philosophy, which I probably arrived at before I would consider myself a red pill or even red-pilled, so to speak. It's actually kind of cold this morning. And it's pretty simple. It's you want to set your life up so that you've got the ability to maneuver, the ability to choose. Essentially, fuck you money. You know, you want to be able to say no to circumstances and events and things if they don't align with who you are and your goals and where you're going in life. I might sound a little groggy this morning, guys. I just got up. I haven't had my coffee yet. I'm probably going to stop and grab a bite to eat while I'm doing this. But yeah, that's the general, I guess, baseline programming that my belief system helps my choices. My belief system is, of course, going to help me decide what choices to make, which will, of course, get me the results. And I've done videos on how to get better results out of life, and it's really just update your beliefs, make better choices, get better results. If that doesn't work out, it's your results suck. Fix your beliefs, and then fix your choices, and then your belief system will update. Man, I'm groggy this morning. I need a coffee. Okay. I think a lot of this for me, I'm just trying to think of the origin of all this, the origin story, so to speak. And I think it mostly came as a function of, both my parents came from Europe, right? My dad was English, my mom was Greek. She kind of grew up all around the Mediterranean, didn't have a very privileged life. You know, women the way they are, how they want to optimize their hypergamy. They try to rely on guys and that sort of thing. And, my dad he wasn't a rock star, entrepreneur that blew up this amazing company and sold it for gajillion dollars, right, sort of thing. He was kind of more of an employee. But this came from my mom, and she said to me one time, she goes, if you want to have true wealth, if you want to have true money, there's only two ways to do it. People will make you money, or money will make you money. And what she means by that, because she's got a bit of a foreign notion the way that she thinks, is people will make you money means have employees, so have a business. And the other one is money will make you money, basically the Warren Buffett philosophy of investing. So basically, let your money have sex and multiply and grow into perpetuity and pay you passive income. I had a conversation with actually one of my old employees yesterday. We had lunch, and he's doing rental flips, like rehab makeups on houses. Well, it looks like we're doing another episode of Driving into the Sun for sure. And his ROI on the flips in today's market is about 11%. And I was looking to get money out of private investments that I do, which pay about 15%, private mortgages. And I was like, it just doesn't make any sense, right? Because it's like, you have a 3-month turnaround, you have risk associated with it, and you have to do a lot of labor. All I'm doing with the private equity investments with private mortgages is basically setting the money there, lending it out, and it pays me back 15%. All I have to do is make sure I vet the borrowers properly so they don't bounce and rip me off. And there was a video on my channel about, the title was something like, real estate will not always make you money. So if you go to YouTube and you search real estate will not always make you money, you'll probably find it, entrepreneurs and cars. So that's the baseline philosophy. And I think it's probably worth noting that there is absolutely, positively no fast way to getting it done. You know what? Let's turn on some music in the background because this is Patreon only. We'll do a little bit of low-key shit here. A little background bounce, background beats, if you will. All right, gonna grab a bite to eat. Mickey D's is kind of my go-to place on the route in. I know some of you guys are gonna be like, fuck you, man, self-care. Yep. But their breakfast menu isn't too bad if you stick to the bacon and egg McMuffin combo. Not too bad, not the greatest either. So let me just grab this real quick. So let's move on to the next thing. The next belief that we need to update when it comes to creating wealth and money, applying the red pill lens to and all that sort of thing is, I've not found any easy path. There's paths that I've tried to go down, which I thought would be easy, which turned out not to be easy, or a whole lot of shit, or made somebody some money and ripped me off. So I think the next belief that you need to update is there is no easy path to riches and wealth. There's a long game that you can play. There are people that will find an easy path, mostly by accident or through some function of luck. For example, the Bitcoin Lambo guys that are in ownership of a Lambo that bought into crypto at the right time and sold at the right time and made massive multiples. We're not talking about, double digits, triple digits. We're talking about, possibly even quadruple digits rate of returns. Can it happen? Does it exist? Is it out there? It happens. So, that's a belief that I would completely update and get rid of, is don't look for easy, quick, incredibly fast paths to wealth or success. Because as far as I can tell, they're just a path to let down time and time again. I've lost a lot of fucking money listening to people telling me to go do certain things that just did not amount to anything for me and ended up costing me a fucking fortune. My preferred method as far as, so I'm going to talk about generating income, because you need to make money to invest money and basically multiply it. You've got to have some kind of base, some kind of foundation. You guys should already know this, but I'm going to go over it anyway. If you're going to go down the route of working, there's not many jobs that you can work that will allow you true financial independence and fuck you money and the ability to unlock that level of potential in your life. CEO of a company, if they hire you to do that, but that's going to take a lot of work on your part, maybe a number of years, more than 10 possibly, maybe even 20, before you can get hired and enrolled as a CEO. High-level sales guy. Sales guys that do really well, that get in the right fields, can make a shit ton of money. A good example of that is high-level real estate. If the transaction's $4 or $5 million and your commission on that's, I don't know what that, it might be 100 grand, 200 grand or something like that, you can make a pretty fucking awesome life. But, you've got yourself in a market that's very cyclical. There's a lot of, right now in the Canadian market today, there's a lot of $2 million plus houses that just sit around collecting dust that never sell. So, there's that. So there's a sales role. And then there's, of course, the STEM roles, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, which would get you well over six figures if you choose the right role. I'm not going to get into what job to pick or what course to take in school. I kind of want to brush over that at 20,000 feet, simply because I'm not very scholarly. I don't think most men are in general, because the school system is generally designed to teach girls how to learn certain subjects. It doesn't really function really well for boys. Boys need to do. Girls kind of like to write shit down and study and remember and regurgitate. It's kind of book smart sort of stuff. So that covers the earning money as a function of a job. And I've said this before on the channel, job just stands for just over broke. JOB will only ever get you just over broke in most cases, in most jobs. So you can't hate on your employer if you're not rolling around in bucks to lucks. You've got to take ownership for that part of your life. And I know you guys aren't going to be offended by this, because we talk about it all the time, especially on the private community, and that's why you guys are there. So my preferred method is entrepreneurship, so I'm going to spend some time on that. And all that is solving a problem. Peter Diamandis, who's the author of Abundance, which is a cool book, you might want to check it out. He also has a TED Talk if you don't want to bother with the book and at least watch that part. Peter Diamandis, I don't know how to spell the last name, but it'll come up if you start typing in Peter Dia on Google or even YouTube. Basically, there's all kinds of problems in the world. And I mean, if you want to be a billionaire, solve a billion problems for a billion people sort of thing. It's kind of as simple as that. It's really not that complicated. The complicated part is the execution. And that's something I can't help you with in this video, because the execution changes depending on what your approach is and how you want to solve the problem and the way that you're going to offer your product or service. So entrepreneurship is my preferred method. I don't think I would ever work for anybody again unless I truly had fuck you money and I was maybe helping somebody out with a business, or it's something that I like to do maybe as a hobby and I didn't really need the money. getting the fuck you money is probably the ultimate goal, and should be the ultimate goal for any guy desiring to become the absolute best version of themselves, because it just creates so many options in life. You can travel to where you want, you can go to where you want, you can turn down things you don't want to do, you can tell women to fuck off, if they're busting your chops so they don't need to be around in your life. There's all kinds of like levels of opportunity and power, and it's just, money is not a bad thing. A lot of people will tell you that money is the root of all evil. It's not. Money is just a store of value, and anybody that has accumulated it has demonstrated to the world that they've added value to people's lives, which is why they're able to store it in their bank accounts or investments, wherever it is. So coming back to the entrepreneurship, I mean, there's just so many problems out there. Everybody's dealing with problems. They've dealt with problems since the beginning of time, since the first business founded. There's always going to be more problems. So you can't ever just kind of sit back and go, well, fuck, everything's been solved. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to go to my job and suck it up. Think about those of you right now that are working a job, let me kind of put it in perspective this way. How many times you go to work and you hate what you do, you think your boss is an asshole, you have a better solution, your colleagues are idiots, why did they hire them? Why are we dealing with this product vendor or whatever? You can kind of fill in the blanks. I'm sure one, two, or maybe all of that, or all of those things that I mentioned might actually resonate with you. So just consider that for a moment. Most men will never find true happiness serving somebody else. All you're doing is you're going to help them line their pockets with gold. And in many, many cases, a lot of businesses are run very inefficiently and incompetently. So, you're not really going to optimize yourself. You're not really going to learn that much. I'll tell you right now, I've learned an incredible amount, more than I did my entire childhood going to school, probably in my first year of running my own business. And it's hard as fuck. It really is hard as fuck. And the government doesn't make it easy. Legislation and laws and people around you will always drop obstacles in your way. And, quite often the obstacle can become the way if you know how to deal with it. Well, let me spend a little bit of time on that. In 2011, there was a lot, when the dollar was pretty much at par here in Canada, there was a lot of American companies that came into Canada and started selling debt settlement services, which is what my company does. And there was a lot of people that getting really shitty services because they didn't know what they were doing. They were just like, the law changed in the US, which is what happened to them. So they were like looking around going, what do? We have, a proven platform, dollars on par up north in Canada. Let's just apply what we do here in Canada and we should get the same results. Credit card debt is credit card debt. Well, they didn't. And what they did was they let a whole bunch of people down. They started complaining to the government. The government started to listen. Then the credit card company started to legislate, started to encourage the Ontario government and the other provincial governments to change the law, basically to put our industry out of business, to get rid of us, because there was enough debt settlement companies at that time that it was costing them quite a bit of money, and they wanted to do something to change it. So I spent $50,000 in about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, lobbying the government to try to stop that. It was completely ineffective. It wasted my time and money. But in the legislation itself, there was language that allowed us to pivot and turn the company, because there was an exemption for lawyers. So all we basically had to do was turn the company into a law firm. Most guys couldn't figure it out. We found it, we made it work, and we survived. Now, we've got all kinds of pressures. Today we have a court case that we're actually defending for one of our customers because we're a law firm. And the judge might rule in case law, which might basically render our model obsolete. So you don't know what's going to happen. So my point with this story is, it is very, very hard to be an entrepreneur. It is not a fucking easy thing. I know that it's portrayed in the media and you see guys like Elon Musk looking sexy as fuck doing things, but it's going to be incredibly hard and stressful. So you've got to have thick skin. One of the skills that you're going to have to master is, of course, the art of giving zero fucks, because there's going to be many, many things that are going to test you, which are going to stress you. I think entrepreneurs in general have very high levels of stress if they don't know how to manage it. So it's one of the things that you're definitely going to have to be good at when it comes to making money, is managing your fucks and only dispensing them for things that are absolutely and truly fuckworthy, that are going to move the bar in your life and that of your business. So, entrepreneurship. And again, guys, I know that there's going to be things that are going to come up that you may have questions with. So, in the comments, I'll make sure that I visit the comments on this premium video and answer every single one of them. So if anything comes up, you can post them in there. You can even post them on the Facebook community page if that's easier for you. It doesn't matter to me. So that's my preferred method, is creating some sort of value, solving a problem. You solve a problem for 1 million people, you make $1 million. You solve a problem, charge $1, you make $1 million. I mean, you charge $10 and solve a problem for 1 million people, you make a heck of a lot more. So think about it from that perspective. There's all kinds of businesses that you can get into. There's products, services, like information sort of thing. I mean, what I do with YouTube right now is, so to speak, almost like an info product, because I'm sharing wisdom and wealth with you guys that you're obviously getting use out of, which is why you continue to support and pledge to be part of the community. So I'm going to talk about those 3 things next, because I think that's really important when it comes to money generation. Products I tend to stay away from. I've mentioned this before in another video, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. The logistics of shipping, procurement, getting the stuff, dealing with asshole customers that don't get it, or it breaks in shipment, or something happens with the fulfillment of the product, dealing with drop shipping. I know there's a lot of guys that do Amazon and Fulfilled by Amazon and Shopify and that sort of stuff. And again, they portray a lot of a very sexy, high-profile life publicly, but it's just not as easy as it might look to you. So just take that with a grain of salt. I tend to stay away from moving physical products around. It's a pain in the ass. So I'll spend some time on services and information. Services are what I did with Total Debt Freedom, my debt settlement company. We basically signed people up for a 3 to 4 year program. It generated recurring revenue. So the other thing that I like about that is, when you do it that way, you've always got recurring revenue. You're not killing what you're eating. I mean, you're not a hunter. So my guy that's basically doing renos, so reno flips on homes, he's killing what he's eating. He has to buy a house, renovate it, and sell it. Buy a house, renovate it, and sell it. So he's constantly working for that one deal over and over again. And he's had one deals that have gone south and didn't work on him, and he either lost money or it was a wash on it. So you have to consider the type of service model that you're going to provide. My preferred service model is, of course, what we're doing, which is recurring revenue, some kind of subscription revenue. Cell phone contracts are a good example of that. Magazine subscriptions are a good example. Anything that's subscription based. So our client enrolls, they subscribe to our service, it lasts for 3-4 years. We earn revenue from that customer for 3-4 years. Excuse me. So that should make sense. Information products. Let's spend a couple of minutes on that. Information is, we live in an information-based society. So if you have know-how and information on how to solve some sort of problem or deal with something, I suppose what I do with the community is I help men become better versions of themselves, take ownership, be more accountable, be more successful, do better with women, that sort of stuff. So basically helping you guys get to a higher level is the sorts of information that I'm providing or sharing with you anyway. So that's a great way to create a business and a community. And again, I've incorporated a community aspect to it, which you guys have noticed by now, of course, because it's either Patreon or we're moving on to the website. But there's recurring revenue. I continue to create recurring content. So Netflix is a great example of that. It's kind of information / services, because they're not really always providing information. A lot of it's entertainment, but the information comes in the form of documentaries, maybe. But that's a really good example of it. So subscription-based revenue, you bring your customer in, they like what you do, they continue to subscribe to get access to what you're giving. The community component I really like as well. So if you're going to do an information product, community component's huge. You guys see how well the community runs on the private Facebook page. Most guys stick around for a long period of time. There's a lot of serving in the community. Everybody's helping each other out. So it really ups the ante. It really ups the level of value, because if I'm the one talking all the time and contributing, it's going to sound like an echo chamber. When you get the other people in the community and contributing, it turns into something a lot greater than itself. The multiple becomes considerably bigger. So that's dealing with that. Man, I must be flying because I'm almost at the office, so we're getting close to the 45-minute mark. I'm going to spend a little bit longer on, actually, you know what, the entrepreneurship's pretty much done. I don't think I need to cover anything else, because the actual nitty-gritty, the step-by-step stuff, the business plan thing is a question that comes up a lot. I did a business plan probably for my first business, and never since. It was weird, because they always tell you in school, I took a business course in college, but they always told you, you gotta have a business plan and follow the plan, and that's, that sort of shit, and it ends up being 40 pages long, and it's you can't predict everything that's going to happen, and how you're going to react to everything that's going to happen. I think that comes from a level of confidence of being, a man. So take that part with a grain of salt when it comes to business plans, because I haven't found a tremendous amount of value. I mean, it's not like I wrote a business plan and went back 8 months later and went, oh, let's go to the business plan and see if we can solve this problem with what we wrote down and what we're going to do. No, the solution you're going to apply to whatever you're dealing with is more than likely going to be considerably different at that time based on how the business has evolved. And the last thing that I'm going to say about businesses is pivot. Pivot, 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 pivot. Always measure what you're doing so you can adjust and pivot where you're going. Because quite simply, with what you're doing as an entrepreneur, running the business or the enterprise as you're doing it, it's just going to change. When I first started the business, 2003, I had this partner who his bright idea was, let's go and sell credit education packages to people to explain to them how to get out of debt. Let's park and off. So we're at the office now, to help them get out of debt. And I just did the math on it. I tried to sell them, and nobody was willing to spend whatever it was we were selling it for. I think it was 60 or 70 bucks on a 40-page guide, basically an ebook to learn how to get out of debt themselves. They wanted to hire somebody to do it. They didn't know how to do it. They didn't have the gumption or even the gut to do it, so to speak. So your business will pivot. So we started with that. Then we started with unlocking equity from people's homes as homeowners with private mortgages to pay out the debt that way. And then we found out there was a hell of a lot of people that had debt that didn't have equity in a home to unlock to do it that way. So that made us pivot a third time, which is into the current plan, actually a fourth time, because now we're basically a law firm. So we pivoted 4 times with this business. So you're going to have to adapt. Obstacles will drop in your way. You're going to have to adapt. You can't fall in love with the process and programming. Things will happen, environmental factors, market factors, and legislative factors from the government that might change laws that will force you to pivot. So just understand, it is not a clear and straight path. You will have to maneuver and adjust accordingly. So I'll stop on that for entrepreneurship. I want to spend some time on the money, creates money aspect of it. There is nothing that I can really point to that is a proven model that will generate a ridiculous rate of return for you. I mean, I think you want to aim for at least 10 to 20%. If you can get 20%, you're really doing well. Anything less than 10%, I mean, if you're only getting 5 to 7% on your money, I think you probably want to rely on mutual funds because you're not doing something right. It was at the point that I got tired of getting probably around 3 to 6% on my money with financial institutions putting them in these streetwise funds and this index fund and that index fund, and they never did fuck all. And you just know that the banks are scraping off their money the entire time on their massive portfolios of trillions of dollars worth of investment money, and the person that's actually giving them money is not getting the great rate of return. I mean, you got to understand that with money, inflation is going to erode about, for every $100 you've got sitting around, if I had $100 here and a year later, I pick up the $100, it's probably worth like 97 bucks or something like that, because the value of everything goes up. Inflation is basically a subtle form of taxation that the government imposes on us, because the money that we keep that we don't spend goes down in value because things cost more money. So it's almost like an invisible form of taxation the government's created with fiat currency, if that makes sense, which is one of the reasons why cryptocurrency is such a great asset class, I think, and is going to blow up in the future. But we're not going to talk about that right now. So the rate of return is very important. You want to figure out what's going to get you at least 10%, if not more. So now the stuff that I use money in to invest, most people aren't going to be able to do unless they've put together a few $100,000 that they can go put out in private equity investment products, kind of like private mortgages, which is what I prefer, because your investment's secured by real estate. So it's pretty hard to get 15% on your money with a very low loss rate, simply because if they don't pay, you've got the house as collateral. So you can go through power sale or foreclosure to sell the house to pay off the debt, and you should be covered. You should be, but you won't always be. Again, I had one deal. It was about, how much was the house worth? Anyway, I did a second mortgage. I lost about it wasn't 160,000. I lost about close to $60,000 on it, even after the foreclosure and power sale, because the guy's house was a piece of shit and he trashed it. So you're you're not always going to go through it smoothly. You will learn along the way, and those $50,000 lessons will teach you a great deal, so you'll adapt and pivot going forward, and hopefully make better choices when you're vetting the borrowers. That's that kind of brief story around the whole concept of private mortgage lending. You're going to need a lot of money to get into that, a few $100,000 at least, and that's not going to be the best value of time on this video, because I know most guys don't have access to do that for private mortgage lending, so maybe I'll spend time on that in the future if there's enough need for that. I think most importantly, it's important, again, to state that you want a good rate of return. You can get it in the stock market. You really can. I've dabbled in the stock market in my investment portfolio. So basically here in Canada, we have something called a RRSP, Registered Retirement Savings Plan, where all the money you make on it is tax-free if you take it out of your retirement portfolio when you retire. I'm probably never going to retire, knowing me the way that I work, but at a certain age you have access to it tax-free. So if you invest outside of the RSP, so that's the other thing too worth mentioning where you live. I mean, if you live in Canada, you should already know that you're paying about, I think, standard tax rate on capital gains on what grows on stock portfolio investments. So you want to have it sheltered somewhere. Whatever that shelter looks like, most countries have some kind of retirement portfolio fund where you put all your investment money there. For the first little bit, I'd probably rely on the bank to see how well they fuck you, just to get an idea. Do that for a few years if you're starting out. If you're a younger guy, put a couple grand in per year and start out with something small. Within 10 years, you should have a few $100,000 if you keep maxing out and putting as much in as possible. Basically, my rule was max out the RSP contribution, which is maximum here in Canada. It's about $24,000 a year. I do that now. When I was younger, I might be putting away anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. They at one point even convinced me to borrow money against the bank for the rate of return, and the math didn't really work out. So you got to be careful with that too. So start out with something like a mutual fund product, which is pretty safe, but it won't get you much. Learn how to invest in stocks. I'm not going to teach you how to invest in stocks because I don't really have a proven formula, even though I've messed around with it for a while. The formula that I found that works the best is stay away from penny stocks. I know there's a lot of guys that encourage you to invest in penny stocks. The rate of return can be exceptionally high, but every single penny stock that I've invested in, or anything less than about $3, let's say, I'm going to say none of them took off. I lost money on all of them. They either shut down, went bankrupt, folded, something. So the money became worth nothing. And in some cases, like I had one in my 20s, I put 10 grand into one stock and it was worth fuck all, because I had this big notion that basically diamond mine stocks were going to make me a fortune in some fucking environment, which was stupid. So stay with high demand, large cap companies. Stuff like Dollarama did really well for me, the dollar store. Because I saw a trend of larger retail outlets shutting down. So this is a trend that I saw. So more of a trend investor. So we had Target here in Canada, which went bankrupt. They shut that down in Canada. And I knew that the stuff people were buying in Target was either going to go to a place like Walmart, which survived, or dollar stores. I picked Dollarama, and it did really fucking well for me. I think it's up like 150%, which is exceptional. I mean, you don't normally get that, in a few years investing in a stock. So I look for trends like that. Another trend that I got onto was a marijuana trend here in Canada, because federal government legalized it about a year or two ago. Growers started growing. There was medicinal uses that were applied for it, and then everything tied it around to the infrastructure that was going to come with a legalization. Like cops need some kind of breathalyzer to test people to see if they're stoned when they're driving. Invested in some of those. There's of course fertilizer companies. There's light companies. There's greenhouses. There's the actual growers themselves. So, I mean, if you pick the right one in that industry that there's going to be demand for, the stock will go up. And it's done it, for me with at least 3 or 4 stocks. So I tend to basically invest in stocks based on trends. Oil and gas market was another one. So a couple of years ago, the oil and gas market collapsed. It went from like $100 a barrel, or $130 a barrel, I think was the high, down to almost $35 a barrel. So when all the oil and gas companies collapsed, I look for ones that had good. So what I basically look is for the PE ratio, so price earnings ratio and earnings per share, and I look for positive numbers there. So if they're positive and strong, and there's usually a recommendation from people that grade these stocks, and it'll say strong buy, hold, sell, or get rid of a piece of shit sort of thing. So you definitely want to look for positive numbers and high numbers when it comes to earnings per share and PE ratios. Those matter. There's some great books out there. I can't think of one that I've read right now because it was about 10-15 years ago, and I don't spend a lot of time reading stock books right now. My formula is really trends and look for strong PE ratios and dividends. I want to make sure it's going to pay recurring revenue. Recurring revenue for me has always been big. It's why my business is subscription revenue. It's why in this community that I'm creating with you guys, it's not, hey, just pay once. It's like, I want you to be a member for a long period of time because it creates recurring revenue. So dividends are a good example of recurring revenue. It's only big companies that will pay those. So look for companies that do stuff like that. Food companies, anything that has to do with feeding, like shit that people need all the time. Population's growing, they need food. I know the population in Canada is growing because we're always importing immigrants, so it's always going to continue to go up. So food companies are great. They're usually managed really well. You look for good management, of course, and a proven track record of growth. Definitely trend buying has probably worked the best for me. So that's the best piece of advice that I can offer for investing money. When you've got more money, when you've got a couple $100,000, then you can look into other investment products that you have more control of, because then you're more of an accredited investor. You've kind of got your shit figured out. They basically stamp this label accredited investor on anybody that's got a net worth over $1 million. That's collectively. So your real estate, meaning your home, investments, other products you have, gold, Bitcoin, stuff like that. So I guess that's kind of, that's a pretty deep talk actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, okay. I'll start to wind this video down. I wanted to kind of run it for about 40-45 minutes because that's a pattern that I want to go into these more deeper ones. I know that there's going to be some questions, so maybe we can spin off a more deeper one, or maybe we can have it as a Q&A session, like a live broadcast for for the community only at some point, and just focus on the topic of money. So post questions below. Nothing's off limits. Let me just think if there's anything else that I've missed. Not really. I think if you follow that general pattern and theme, you'll probably do quite well. But just remember, it's not a fast thing. I fucking got up at, before 6 a.m. and in my car, and I'm ready to go to the office, and I've been doing that for 15 years, guys. So you got to remember, it's going to be you that's going to have to lead the charge. It's going to be you that's going to have to take ownership. You have the burden of performance of a man. If you create a business, don't expect them to perform at the same level as you. They're just not going to. They're probably going to function at about 80 to 90% of your skill and talent level, because you're the one that's taking the risk and doing the work as an entrepreneur. And even themselves, when they're there as an employee, they're not going to perform at 100%. Employees basically will perform at a level that keeps them from getting fired, where they don't have to lose their mind over what they're doing. Which, let me just kind of go back to the entrepreneurship thing. I'm not a big fan of running a business with a lot of employees. Employees, and I've talked about this in a video that I think I did with Donovan, they're not very efficient. They're fucking each other. You've got labor board issues. They quit. They come and go. They call in sick. They're not reliable. So if you're going to run a business, try to structure it and function it. And of course, bootstrap it. I mentioned that in that video too. So meaning don't borrow money to do it. You should be able to do it with your own money. You want to build something out that doesn't require a lot of employees working for you. It's okay to outsource out jobs to, there's all these outsourcing services, Odesk, Elance, there's all kinds of them. I don't use them very much anymore, but I tend to rely on those more for one-off tasks than actually hiring somebody, training them, having them on your payroll, and paying all the deductions and the healthcare and the source, benefits and employment insurance. It's just a lot of work. The return of investment is high, but so is the stress level. If you know how to manage it, it will become lower. So I think I'll wrap it up on that note. It's a pretty long video. Yeah, we're getting close to 40 minutes. I will say this, though. Some of you guys have asked me about coaching. On the new community tab, what I'm going to end up doing is embedding, and I think it's there right now, actually, a coaching link for community members only. I'm going to stop using the word Patreon because we're starting to move off that. For community members only. Currently on Clarity, I'm billing out close to $600 an hour for coaching calls. when I was hiring coaches, when I was doing this, like, I don't know, 2008, 2009, I was paying almost $2,000 to $3,000 a month for my coach, and he was giving me 2 hours a month. So my aim will be to get to that level. So, and the multiples that I'll be generating as far as ROI for the conversations will be many times higher than that. I mean, right now I've got 4 people that I'm coaching on a regular, consistent basis, subscription-wise, that need help with things in their lives, and it's not that focus on business. That's where I'd like to spend most of the time. So, back to the original point. Calendly link is going to be embedded on the community page. It's going to be at a discounted rate for you guys as part of the community. So you'll be able to book on a calendar there. It should be available in the next couple of weeks. I'll talk more about that when it launches. But yeah, if you want to start a business, the other thing that I'm going to tell you is hire a coach. Definitely hire a coach. Once you've got traction and you're making some money, you've done $100,000, $200,000 a year in sales, not what you're paying yourself, but in sales. You want to find somebody that's done it and get mentored, and they're not going to do it for free. You're going to have to pay them, but the value you'll get out of what you're paying them will be more than worth it. Like I said, my first coach cost me, it was anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a month, and I had him for about 8 months, and it was well worth what I paid him. So you definitely want to consider those things because the people in your circle, I mean, if you're a first-time entrepreneur, they're not going to have the tools and resources. They're going to discourage you. They're going to tell you that you can't do it. Why don't you get a real job? Blah, blah, fucking blah. Well, they're just scared. As a man, you got to be courageous. You have the burden of performance. You're going to have to do the work. So I don't believe there's any higher calling as a guy than to put a small dent in the universe. And for some people, that's raise a family and have a bunch of kids and take the risks of doing that with a woman, which we don't need to spend too much time on. For other guys, it's create a business, which is also almost like a living, breathing thing that has a return on investment. So I'd like to plant that seed for you. I guess the purpose of this video is allow me to plant the seed of entrepreneurship. It is the true path to success and wealth and freedom. And there's nothing else out there that you'll get working for somebody else, even if you're hired as a CEO for a company or the top ranked salesman or the best scientist in your field or engineer and whatever it is that you're doing. I don't believe that you'll have the full flexibility and ability to maneuver and access to the fuck you money that you can make when you become an entrepreneur. 1, so you've run some business, and 2, you start learning how to invest your money and diversify it into different things. So watch what I've talked about and what I do in my life. I've never gotten this detailed on any video, so this is only for you guys. Please do not share this. This is for the community members only. I truly hope this helped you. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. And if you have any follow-up questions, post them in there. And I'll see you guys in next month's premium video and in the community. Thank you so much for your support. And go do it, brothers. It's definitely within you. Peace out.